Okay, I think we'll get started and I'll do the intro and that give time for people to join. My name is Didier and thank you very much for attending. This is the September meetup for the HPE developer community. I have with me Denis. He will be pasting some answers in the Q&A about some of the links of the program. And today I'm very pleased to have with us for this meetup Chris, the CEO from NetHopper. And before I hand over to Chris for his session on DevOps alerts, tools, sprawl, complexity, burnout, help, which sounds like an interesting therapy, we'll go through a few slides of introduction about the HPE developer program. We have these meetups which you just joined for the September edition, and these are monthly talks that we organize around a particular topic, technology topic. We go in depth on a particular open source or not technology. We have a session planned for October with Red Hat about Podman and containers, and you can find on this page all the past events plus the replay. And this is also where we put all the upcoming sessions. So you can register there for this October meetup, and you can find all the replay from our past sessions. And we will put today's session through the process and on our YouTube channel within a few days, hopefully. And you can find the replay of that session very quickly. We have a second program called Munch and Learn, which we started earlier than the meetup, actually. I don't have a session to advertise, but just so you know, Munch and Learn are more thought leadership type of sessions, vendor and product agnostic. We try to get fellows and DT from HPE to discuss some of important industry trends. I'm working on it. Stay tuned. If there is a session for October, it will be advertised in our newsletter, and it will be put in this Munch and Learn page where you can find all the past session replay. So that's for the talks. We also do other things in the developer community program. We do another thing that you might find interesting for learning new technology called the workshops on demand. So you can find a catalog of workshops on our website. We have right now 33 workshops available, all of which are using a Jupyter Notebook experience. Let's put it this way, where you'll be using notebooks to actually run the workshop. We make those available for free 24/7, and anyone can get to it. So we use it ourselves to deliver event session when we have big events for pre-sales, for example. But it's available the rest of the year. So feel free to give it a try. We have a lot of open source sessions there on Docker, on Kubernetes, on what's an API. We have some programming language topic like Python and Rust, and we have also some product topic like OneView and some other sessions from some of our product catalog. Give it a try. Provide us with feedback. We're always interested to hear what is missing. Maybe we have it in the catalog we have it in the pipe for the next few months. But it's always good to hear back what's missing and what you like and didn't like. Again, this is a community, so we need the help from you to amplify and contribute. We need you, for example, to join our talks, our monthly talk, but also to invite others to join. If you think it's appropriate for what they do, you can invite customers, partners, students. You can invite also people to join our newsletter. Again, it's easy to sign up. It's very easy to unsubscribe. We send an unsubscribe link to with each newsletter we send at the beginning of every month. You can join our Slack. We have a dedicated Slack. I'm not talking here about the internal HPE Slack. I'm talking about an external Slack dedicated to discuss developer or data scientist questions. We have channels for many different products and topics. You can sign up and join the conversation and ask questions. And then we have a Twitter handle. If you Twitter, sorry, I should say X now, I think. We should change that slide. If you're an SME and you're listening to me right now, we need people to contribute blogs. So if you feel like writing an experience, sharing an experience, in learning a new technology or some customer experience that you can anonymize, we'd be happy to host a blog and work on you with on that blog. We provide technical review, we provide editorial review, and we have a pretty nice system that allows people to fork our repo and create blogs as simple as a pull request on our repository. So if you have a GitHub account, and you're all set, and you can create a blog with us. You can also speak at meetups if you're SME on a particular technology. You reach out to me, and we also wouldn't mind any help in building additional workshops on demand. If you're an expert in a particular technology, maybe we can work together, and you provide the content and we help with the infrastructure, and we have a new workshop in the catalog. So reach out to the team, and let's build things together. So that's one way to find all our links and our little mascot here. And you have a QR code at the top that you can scan for all those links. We have that external Slack. There's also an internal Slack for the HPE folks in the room. You can join, and the newsletter, you can join us by mail, the Twitter account. We have a Yammer group for our partners, and this is the direct link to our workshops on demand. The developer.hp.com is the main link that you should remember from today. And that's it from me. With that, I will hand it over to Chris for the real content of that session. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thanks for having me, DDA, and the rest of the HPE developer community. I'm excited to be here. Today, we're going to talk about some of the chaos that Kubernetes folks are experiencing. NetHopper is a company that can help. We're the maker of Chaos, Kubernetes application operations platform as a service. It's a mouthful, so you can just say Chaos. Its whole purpose in life is 3 words: make Kubernetes simpler. We can do what we're talking about today, which is reduce tool sprawl and some of the chaos you might be experiencing. We're an HPE partner, we're a GreenLake offering, and there's also a fully turnkey managed service that you can acquire through HPE that does chaos. I'm the founder of NetHopper. I witnessed my Kubernetes journey began about 5 years ago, and I saw that it was dominating the software container space, but I also saw that lots of people were experiencing lots of pain. So I hired along with me a team of DevOps experts, and we are here to take away the pain. That's our mission in life. I love to solve problems, and this seems like a big one. So it's been my focus for the last several years. And I think we really have a great platform that hopefully can help you, because that's what we're here for. So let me minimize that. So let's start at the top. So it's all about software applications, not just the ones on your iPhone, but the ones on your PC and the ones that your company makes and uses. You know, digital transformation is a big buzzword. If that's the brain, then software applications are the muscles, the body. Digital transformation happens with software applications, and it's obviously big business. Every company relies on their software applications. The problem is most of them fail. People who are developing software are experiencing really high failure rates, especially if they're using modern containers and platforms like Kubernetes. And the reason is because they're really difficult. About 80% of people fail to meet their budget, timeline, or goals because they don't have the right skills on their teams. They're missing some intelligent tools in the industry because it's relatively new, this Kubernetes thing, and they underestimate the effort. So particularly when we get, one of the big problems with Kubernetes is like cheap toys, I shouldn't use the word cheap, batteries not included, Kubernetes is tools not included. So you can, most of you have probably already gone through a cloud journey where you end up at AWS, Google, Azure, or maybe you're still on private data centers or both down at the infrastructure layer, and then you figure out how to deploy Kubernetes. And that's wonderful. You'll either use Amazon's Kubernetes or Google's or Red Hat's. And then there's missing tools in that environment where you cannot deploy applications reliably to a Kubernetes environment without these tools. And if it was just 1 or 2 tools, no big deal. Many people would overcome the challenge, but there's a large set of them. One is there's a set of GitOps tools using Git to do your operations. There's observability tools, there's CI/CD pipelines that change due to Kubernetes. There's infrastructure as code to create new clusters. There's networking tools you need to access your applications in very specific ways in Kubernetes. There's new ways to protect secrets. And there's even ways recently to use AI to manage your Kubernetes, your applications in Kubernetes. All this needs to be done, and every company needs to decide what this recipe is before they deploy these applications that are helping to run their business. And the reason why we call this a tool sprawl workshop is you're looking at 12 to 15 tools at this top layer that you need to hire experts on. And the experience, so some of the chaos this creates is devs that write your software, they know the software really well, but they do not know Kubernetes. They do not want to know Kubernetes, and they don't need to know Kubernetes, but they do if their software doesn't work when it runs in Kubernetes. So they spend all their time learning Kubernetes and how to operate in it, even though it shouldn't be necessary. And what happens is application development suffers. So they're trying to do the job of operations. Now, operations knows Kubernetes, but they got to add these 15 tools to every Kubernetes environment, and they want to automate that. So they spend their time automating and developing a tools platform. Meanwhile, they're not operating the apps, and they fail, and they're disruptive to your business. This is why 79% of apps fail. And the solution is to get a Kubernetes operations platform, a platform that sits on top of Kubernetes that lets devs develop and ops operate. So we have a poll question here. We want to know who's experiencing this type of pain. Is your DevOps team, oh, here it is on the screen. You should see it pop up on your screen. It says, is your DevOps team developing a tools platform? This is often called platform engineering. And if you could go ahead and answer really quickly, it's going to be a live poll. So it's only going to be around for another 10 seconds. And we'll see what the answers are here. I see the yeses and nos are competing. 40-60 yes. So about a third of you have a tools platform that sits on top of Kubernetes, and 2/3 of you don't. That's about expected. I'm going to end the poll now. I think it's hovering in that. Maybe you did or did not see that, but I'm sharing results. So if you haven't seen it, about a third of you said, yes, we are developing a platform for tools, and 2/3 of you said no. So that's really great. So it's on top of mind for some of you. Some of you have started executing on it. So tools platforms can be very difficult to develop. It's a full-time job. And there are easy ways to do it, and there are hard ways to do it. But first, we want to talk about what are all these tools, and what does tool sprawl look like? Maybe a platform can help, but what does tool sprawl look like? So let's say you have a DevOps team. These are the people that are in the infinite cycle of developing, creating new features, testing, deploying applications. And one of the first things they have to do in Kubernetes is they have to build clusters. If you've never built a cluster before, you probably have a cluster build expert on your team. I'm going to go and take you through an experience of what it looks like to become a cluster build expert. So for example, if you're in AWS, you might be taking an AWS getting started, installing the AWS CLI, figuring out how to use that CLI to turn up a Kubernetes cluster and manipulate IAM and other services in AWS in order to turn up AWS's Kubernetes, which is called EKS. So it's a lengthy experience, and that's why there's a DevOps person on that case. So now that's once you have the clusters installed, then you have kubectl terminals. You need to access these. And this is, if you don't have a kubectl expert, you probably have one of these on the team, and everybody ends up becoming one, unfortunately. But it's Kubernetes CLI, it's command line driven. And the experience for that is install kubectl, learn all about it. It takes a couple of years to learn this tool and all it's capable of. And most software devs don't have a couple of years of free time in their lives. So then I'm not going to go out to all of these website experiences, but then typically in order to deploy applications, you need to install some sort of GitOps arrangement like Flux or Argo, and you're going to do that in all 3 clusters. Then from a networking perspective, eventually you're going to want to access your apps because people want to browse to them. And that's going to involve ingress controllers in each of your 3 different clusters. You're going to want to record what goes on, metrics in there, so that you can tell, you can do a troubleshooting on what happened in the past. So you'll need some Prometheus servers in each cluster. In order to view that data, you're going to want Grafana dashboards that you customize in each of those clusters. And then ultimately, again, for troubleshooting, you're going to want to collect all the logs of everything that ever happens. Now, you may end up, most people actually have several more tools, but I couldn't fit more on this page. But even this small collection of tools requires that on your DevOps team, you have 7 absolute experts in each one of these areas. And you're going to install in 3 clusters these tools. It means 21 installs in these clusters. And now you have 21 consoles or dashboards that you have to monitor to see how your apps are running. So it's a large process. It takes a large team and a lot of time. And most of this is done by human hands, and it's error prone. If you have not 3, but 50 clusters, you're very, very likely to make a lot of mistakes, and it might take your applications down. So we have another poll here. DDA is putting up the poll question. Let's see who is experiencing this tool sprawl. How many tools does your DevOps team install before deploying apps? And if you don't know, don't answer. But if you have a pretty good idea, and it doesn't have to be precise, kind of put your numbers in here. Some people do install 0. They just go install applications and they have no observability, but that's okay. They're just installing them. Other people have a handful, some have a couple of handfuls, and some have even more. So I'm looking at the poll. Maybe you're seeing it, maybe you're not. This is my first time seeing a Zoom poll, so second time now. And I see that I'm going to share results. Oh, they are being shared. I can see that about 10% of us have 0 tools installed. About half of us, right in the sweet spot, the biggest answer, has between 1 and 5 tools installed in Kubernetes before deploying apps. About a quarter of us have 5 to 10 tools installed, and 15% of us install more than 10 tools. So I would say there's 1 to 5, 5 to 10, and more than 10. There's definitely some tool sprawl going on here. And if you multiply that times the number of Kubernetes clusters you have, it's a lot of tool sprawl. So back to the presentation. So one thing, lessons learned, if you don't have any tools installed in Kubernetes, there's one big lesson that we see with all their customers, with all our customers, and that is that even if you don't use us, you should use a GitOps pattern to do Kubernetes configuration. The mantra is pull, don't push. When Kubernetes first came out, and a lot of new teams, they push their configuration to Kubernetes. These are oftentimes directly developers, and developers, they know how to make the app, and they just push, they learn a little bit of Kubernetes and they push it to Kubernetes. Unfortunately, that causes every dev to need to be a Kubernetes expert. And you never know who did what exactly when there's a team of developers doing things in Kubernetes, because they're constantly pushing config. It's not auditable, it's not repeatable, and this is how a lot of mistakes are made and chaos is created. The way that mature Kubernetes teams do this is they use a pull approach. What they do is the developers don't get involved directly with Kubernetes. The developers instead describe their application, not just the source code, but the way they want their application to run in Git. And so the result of developing application is an update to Git. And Git, then there'll be something running in your Kubernetes clusters. Our favorite is Argo CD. And when you install Argo CD in 1 or 100 Kubernetes clusters, its goal in life is to make sure that that cluster is running as the DevOps team has declared in Git. This is much more repeatable. It lets ops take over so that devs don't have to constantly be in the swamp of Kubernetes. It's repeatable, it's auditable, because every change is made in Git, and it's also very scalable. So if you don't have a GitOps pattern, you should definitely use one. Now we have a poll to see who uses a GitOps pattern. This is an important question to see maybe how high your pain is with Kubernetes. And don't be shy or embarrassed. We see about half the people we talk to are not doing GitOps yet. That's where they are in their journey. And it looks like I'm seeing the poll results. We'll share them with you in a second, but 10 seconds in, it's about half and half. Of the 27 responders, half of you have said yes, sharing the results here. Yes, we do use a GitOps pattern, and half of you are saying no. Definitely an opportunity for you to reduce your tool sprawl, reduce your chaos, and make Kubernetes easier to use, and maybe a little bit more sleep at night if you embrace a GitOps pattern. And I'm about to actually talk about what NetHopper does, and we have a GitOps-based platform that runs on top of Kubernetes that can not only have your Kubernetes do GitOps, but also bring all your tools to the Kubernetes environment, so that instead of taking days or weeks to get them ready for apps, we can get them ready in minutes. So this is often called platform engineering. Most people view a platform as a single place for all your tools. It's a single place where your whole team can access them through single sign-on. These tools should be installed automatically in the cluster if you choose to. All the tools should be used in a single pane of glass. There shouldn't be 21 dashboards for you to manage your 3 different clusters. And you should get 24/7 support. So, with a collection of open source tools, all of these on the page, or most of them, are CNCF open source tools. Very difficult to get support. Make sure that, if you build a platform, or if you rent or buy a platform, make sure it comes with 24/7 support. Introducing KAOS. This is exactly what we do. It's a Kubernetes operations platform. Your team is sitting on the left-hand side of the platform, and you use the platform. I'm going to demo this experience as if I am a DevOps member in the last 20 minutes of this phone call, and which is going to start that demo will start really quickly. You're armed with generally a couple of tools. Maybe it's a ServiceNow or a Jira, some sort of ITSM tool, and also GitHub. That's the red logo here. And you access this platform. You've declared things like the infrastructure you want and how the applications should behave. And the platform does the rest. It will build that infrastructure in your clouds, and it will deploy those applications to all of your Kubernetes clusters in a very simple, straightforward way. So that's the platform in a nutshell. It brings in all of these tools that you need to have running before you deploy an application. One note here, you see a NetHopper logo on KAOS. The Hewlett-Packard actually has a managed service that not only does KAOS, but if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I don't want to use a new platform, I don't need to learn a new platform, who are we going to hire to use this platform? First, it's very simple. And if you know nothing about Kubernetes, you can use this platform. But secondly, if you would like to outsource it, if you'd like to make this turnkey for your company, a particular project or application, Hewlett-Packard has a managed service that will do all of this for you, including give you DevOps folks to do it, including managing your cloud or managing your transition from private data center to cloud. If you're interested in such a thing, I mean, Hewlett-Packard's a great company. They have a storied legacy of great support and services. It's a strong offering, and you should definitely look into using that version of KAOS if you'd like. Some of the differentiators of the platform of KAOS is that it works with all clouds in Kubernetes. So if you say, well, I'm an OpenShift user in a private data center, will it work for me? The answer is yes. If you say, well, I run in public cloud AWS and I'm using their Kubernetes offering EKS, will KAOS work for me? The answer is yes. It'll actually work on both simultaneously, and I'll show that in the demo. It's made for application teams. A lot of tools are made for IT teams. This is made for you, the SREs, the DevOps team, the platform engineering team. And it is based on GitOps. We do not want you to put all of your eggs in our basket. We would much rather have you declare how you would like your operations and Kubernetes to run in your own Git, and we will listen to it. That way, you don't really have to rely on our platform for all of the auditability and history to things. You've got your Git. That's a great place to store all of your operations information. All right, now I'm going to jump into the demo. And there's a couple of actors in the demo. You're seeing 4 different buckets. One is the services that you use as DevOps. Starting in the upper left-hand corner, there's the NetHopper PaaS. I'm going to show you this in the demo. We're going to log into www.nethopper.io, and that is the browser-based KOps that we've been talking about. The other one is your Git source. You're going to have your own Git. It might be on-prem. It might be GitLab. It might be GitHub in the cloud. All of those work. You're going to have your container images that you've built. We can help you build them through the CI/CD pipeline, but either way, you're going to need a place to store them, either Docker Hub or Quay or maybe a private registry. So those are the main services that you'll consume. And then you have at the bottom of the screen your clusters. So you have 3 different sets of Kubernetes clusters. One of the things that KOps does is it's multi-cluster. So everybody that we talk to that's new in their Kubernetes journey thinks they're going to have one Kubernetes cluster. Okay, maybe I'll have one for development and one for prod. So I'll have 2 Kubernetes clusters. Talk to them a year later or 2 years later, everybody has 25 clusters or 50 clusters. There's lots of different reasons why, but they multiply like rabbits. And if you don't have a plan to make sure you can handle the scale of Kubernetes clusters, then you have a problem. You will run into more chaos. So what we do at NetHopper is we don't just manage one Kubernetes cluster. We manage them in groups. We call them networks or networks of clusters. I'm going to create one in the demo today called My Clusters, and it's going to have 3 clusters in it. It's going to have a cluster called a hub, a cluster called a dev, and a cluster called a prod. And these 3 clusters are 3 separate Kubernetes clusters. They could have 1 machine under the cluster, or they could have 1,000 machines under the cluster. It doesn't matter. But they're 3 separate clusters. And we're going to bring these tools not just to one cluster. We're going to bring it to all 3 at the same time with a single pane of glass. We also have, so there's going to be one of these clusters is going to be slightly more important than the others, and that's going to be called the hub cluster. And the other clusters are going to attach or call home to join the hub cluster. We're going to call those a dev cluster for your development efforts and a prod cluster for your production applications. Now, you'll notice in each one of these clusters, in order to have them participate in KOps and reduce your tool sprawl, they need to come into the service. And to do that, we're going to have a copy-paste instruction to deploy the NetHopper agent in each one of these clusters. And we're going to show you how this works. We're also going to deploy applications to all 3 of these clusters in the demo. And we're going to do this in the next 17 minutes, starting from absolute scratch. So it's challenging to turn up 3 clusters, install 15 tools, and deploy 3 applications, and monitor those applications in 15 minutes, but that's what we're going to do. I have a bunch of demo steps. If you'd like, take a screenshot of this picture and put it off to the side in a small window, because I'm actually going to be doing the demo rather than coming back to these steps all the time. But real quick, we're going to start at the NetHopper console. We're going to log in and create a network of clusters. We're going to install the agent in the hub cluster. Then we're going to come back and we're going to see all the wonderful tools that were turned up in the hub cluster. And then we're going to attach the dev and prod clusters with a very simple, again, install instruction, copy, paste. And then we're going to deploy applications and use all of these wonderful tools to see how the applications were deployed. We're even going to migrate an application from one cloud to the other in the next 15 minutes. So I'm actually going to stop presenting on PowerPoint, and I'm going to bring up a couple of screens. One is, here is www.nethopper.io. This is our marketing website. You can, and our docs website. But like most cloud providers, we have a sign-in console at the upper right-hand side. If you click on that, you're going to come to a login registration page. Note that you also can add, for an HPE experience, you can add HPE to the front of mynethopper.com, and you will log into the HP system. I'm going to sign in with email. And I've already signed in before, so it auto-completes. And now you can see I have a console that's opened. This is your KOps console branded for HP, Managed Services, and GreenLake. And you can see I'm logged in here as Mr. DevOps. That's my sign name in KOps. I have a number of organizations I can belong to, just like GitHub. I have, and we won't go into that, but you can set up multiple organizations and multiple tenants. This particular organization has nothing in it. I'm in the dashboard. You don't see a dashboard because it says you haven't met the requirements for a dashboard. You have to have at least one network. So I also have 3 consoles to my 3 Kubernetes clusters, which hopefully you won't have to use very much once you start to learn how to do KOps, but you do need to use them to install the NetHopper agent in these clusters. So first thing I need to do is create a network of clusters. So I click create a network, and I'm going to give my network a name. I'm going to call it my clusters. And in my clusters, I get to decide what tools I'm going to have in this network of Kubernetes clusters. You have options like Argo events you can turn on and on. Argo workflows. These two often combine and to make a great container-based CI/CD platform, and we can help you do that. It's a different demo than today, so I won't be using these tools today, but I'm going to install them. We also have Crossplane as an option, which is a great infrastructure as code tool. For those of you experiencing heartburn with Terraform, Crossplane is the next generation of Terraform and can have you avoid some of the license challenges that Terraform is imposing on the world. Grafana and Prometheus are going to allow you to store and view all of your metrics in all of your clusters. You can install that. We just added an AI ops tool called Kubernetes GPT, which is like having an AI-based Kubernetes expert constantly watching every cluster in the network. We also have sealed secrets so that you can encrypt your secrets and actually store them in Git. So rather than doing something super special for your secrets, you just encrypt them, put them in Git, and when you deploy them to Kubernetes, they get decrypted and are usable. It's super safe, endorsed by Kubernetes as the way to do secrets. And of course, Argo CD as the underlying GitOps platform that's not only going to install these tools, but also your applications. So I'm going to click OK to that network. And now what I need to do when I create a network is I need to identify who the hub cluster is going to be. As I said, I have these 3 Kubernetes terminals back here and I'm for my 3 clusters, and I need to pick one. So I'm actually going to pick this cluster called hub, which I've already defined the name of it and the context for kubectl. And I get to decide whether I want to connect to that, whether all the other clusters are going to connect to the hub using an ingress in the hub, a node port in the hub, a load balancer in the hub. The easiest and simplest is a node port. And I happen to know the IP address of that node. It's in of that cluster. It's in my house. So I'll put the IP address of it there. And I'll save it. And now what happens is now I have a dashboard that's populated, and we'll come back to that later, but I want to go over to the networks tab and actually see what happened when we created that network. If you see what happens, I now have a new network with this network symbol, which is a group of clusters. And you can see what a network is. It's a group of clusters, and there's one cluster in it right now called the hub. And now, rather than you needing to be a tools expert to install the tools that I showed in a previous, in the first 10 minutes of conversation, we make it really simple for you. No Kubernetes expertise necessary. You simply click on the install instructions, and it opens a modal, and it says, these are the install instructions to install the KOps agent in the hub cluster. It's actually a very simple kubectl command that's going to go get all the configuration you need from that NetHopper PaaS running in the public. It's private to you, and these instructions can only be given for you. So we're going to copy these instructions to the clipboard. We're going to go over here to my hub Kubernetes cluster. And so if you see, kubectl version, you see what version of kubectl I'm in. If you do a kubectl get all, you can see there's nothing running here but the Kubernetes service. If you do a Kubernetes get namespaces, you can see there's just the default namespaces that ship with this brand of Minikube. So there's really nothing running in the cluster. Once I take those instructions and I paste them into the terminal, that's when the magic begins. That's when NetHopper gets downloaded and starts installing itself in this cluster. And you can see there's a deployment, a pod, and a service, 6 different things that are going to get installed in your Kubernetes cluster. Now, leave your kubectl terminal behind, and you come back to the KOps experience, and you can see that I have a hub cluster that was uninstalled, and it's going through several states to come up and be installed. Now we're in waiting for router, Argo CD installing, and it'll go through several states. Now, one of the things that that you'll need to do when you bring up a cluster is, you notice back here I have 3 kubectl terminals. If I had 80 clusters, I'd have 80 kubectl terminals, and that can be painful. So I don't want 80 kubectl terminals. I want a single pane of glass to manage everything. Well, one of the things you get right here is you get an Argo CD server that you can come in and it will manage what's going on in these 3 or 80 clusters of the network. And you can see that my agent is now coming up. One of the other things I get is I get a kubectl terminal. So I don't have to manage all those other terminals. I can just open up one temporarily. And if I want to query what's going on in my kubectl, in that Kubernetes cluster, I have the window to show me right here. I don't have to go outside of this experience, outside of my single pane of glass, and I can close the kubectl. Now, you can see in the hub, there are a number of tools installed, including Argo CD. We're actually, if you want to look at the installed features, we actually have turned up Argo CD, and now we're installing Argo workflows. We've installed sealed secrets, Argo events, crossplane. We're installing all the tools that you said you wanted in this cluster when we created the network, that you wanted in the network when we created the network. So now I have the hub cluster up and running. It's under management. I can kubectl to it. I can see what's happening in Argo CD. But before we do that, let me add these dev and production clusters. Now, to create a group of clusters is also very easy. I click on the network, attach a cluster to this network, and I come up with a dialog that says, what clusters would you like to attach? Well, I have 2 others that I've defined. I want my dev and my prod clusters attached. And when I defined these clusters, I actually gave them very simple tags. The dev cluster has a dev tag, and the prod cluster has a prod tag. And I'll talk about tags in a second. Tags radically simplify how you manage things in Kubernetes, and we'll show you how to use them in a second. So I'm going to install those clusters, and just like my hub cluster, they come up in an uninstalled state. If I had a poll question, I would ask, who thinks they know how to install those clusters right now? Well, right here, I have install instructions for the dev cluster. I'm going to copy those to my clipboard, and I'm going to go over to my dev Kubernetes terminal. Again, this is a blank Kubernetes cluster. It's never been used for anything before, and I'm going to paste NetHopper in it. And this is going to cause the NetHop agent to download and deploy in the dev cluster. So you can see instructions fetch, and it's going to go through its status changes until it becomes up. Now, likewise, I'm also going to go get the cut and paste instructions for my prod cluster. I'm going to install that into my blank, brand new Kubernetes cluster I want to use for production. Now, if I come back to KOps, I see that I've got agents starting. My dev cluster, the agent is up. My hub cloud link is up, which means it's attached to my hub. And they're communicating with each other so that they can share statuses and other things they need to operate as a group. And now my production cluster, the agent's starting, it's going to come up, and then it's going to connect to the hub as well. So it's connecting, and it's going to come up. So now I have these 3 clusters that I manage as a group. Again, if this was 80 clusters, you could manage 8 as a group, 80 clusters as a group. The question is, what do I want to do with these clusters? So there's lots of things you can do. I'm going to go down the list of pages here, and I'm going to end with applications, and I'm going to deploy an application to all 3 of these clusters. Now, these clusters could be minikubes running in your house, or they could be EKS clusters running in the cloud, or they could be OpenShifts running on your VPN in your corporate data center. And you're managing, it doesn't matter what Kubernetes they are, it doesn't matter where they're running, we can manage them exactly like you're about to see. So as we go down the page, we see that some of the resources we have are repositories. These are Git repositories. That's why the Git symbol is here. And you can see that I have a repository for infrastructure as code. That's when I want to, this is where I put my Terraform or my Crossplane to build infrastructure. And I have a repository called apps. This is a repository where I declare how I want my apps to run. I can put my Helm charts here or my YAML configuration here, and it's in GitHub. So anytime it changes, everyone will know it. You can connect to private Gits or public Gits, but this is how you, define a new repository. I have 2 already defined. There's a secrets tab. You want to keep everything in Git. In order to be GitOps based, you want everything in Git. This is a great way to put secrets in Git. You can generate a secret. We'll take you through a dialogue. The output will be, hey, put this in your Git repository. You copy, paste, and put in your Git repository, and now you got a secret that can go to any Kubernetes cluster in the world. Encrypted, in flight, and at rest. So, and auditable and modifiable in Git. Going down the tab, there's an infrastructure tab where we can help you create infrastructure. I'm not gonna do this today because, for example, it takes 15 minutes for Amazon to turn up a Kubernetes cluster. So I don't have that much time, but we can show you a demo whereby we can turn up infrastructure in Google, Amazon, Microsoft clouds. We can turn them up in Nutanix on VMware. So anything for which there is either a Terraform provider or a Crossplane provider, you can turn up infrastructure for. Going down the page, we get to applications and workflows. I'll cover workflows for a second. The workflows, I mentioned it in the tools, workflows and events from Argo that we install. It's a great tool for container-based CI/CD platforms, or basically any process automation you want to do. It can be triggered by any events like GitHub check-ins, GitHub PRs, or many different webhooks and web sources. And you can have it generically do whatever you'd like it to do. The engine behind that is workflows and events from Argo, and we've already installed them in your cluster, so it's ready to use. It could be the foundation of your next CI/CD pipeline if your current CI/CD pipeline seems to be failing you as you go to Kubernetes. So another very important tab here is once you get all these tools, an application. So I'm going to click on the create an application. And for an application, I'm going to call this, there's a famous application that the Argo folks love to deploy. It's called Guestbook. And I'm going to deploy the Guestbook application to all 3 of those clusters. The first thing I do is I pick the repository where it's located. Well, luckily in the repository tab, I already declared where my apps are. So I'm going to pick those apps. So I load this example. I want to put this Guestbook in the default destination, default namespace. You also have all sorts of other policies you can set, like how often do you want to sync? I don't trust Argo yet. I want to come in and manually sync apps. All that's totally fine. How you delete apps, how you heal apps, how you prune apps. You can set all of those policies, and most of them require some explanation. But we put it right here. Configuration tools for Kubernetes. And then there's an important, also, just like we tagged our clusters, we also get to tag our applications. And I'm going to create a new tag. I want this Guestbook. It's been deployed nowhere. Well, how, we don't know what health it is because it hasn't been deployed. It's not running anywhere, but we know about it. But where do we want to deploy it? That's where distribution rules come in. Distribution rules is the engine that uses tags. So if you click on the distribution rule tag, you can see we have no distribution rules, but I'm going to create my first rule. And the first rule is very simple. There's the top half of this chart and the bottom half of this modal. The top half says any object or application matching this tag. So I want this application to go to 3 different places with this rule, and I'm going to click Save. Now, you can see here, as I start to look at these things, I'm going to start to deploy the application to dev. I see the summary status here, but I can also see the health in every cloud that it's in. I can go so far as to drill into any one of those clouds and see the whole resource tree. And I can look at the deployment that I know is in the guestbook UI. And I can see the replica set that goes with that. And I can see the health of everything. I can go look at the manifest files that's been deployed. So I have full visibility of what's going on with this application in all of my clouds. I can even select, I want to see things that are degraded or missing. And it'll give me a filtered list of what is in those clouds. So now I've deployed the cloud. Rule and say, you know, I have this app in prod and dev. I don't want it in my hub cluster anymore. I deselect it and I save it. And the output of that will be, you can see I have 10 objects among my 3 clusters. I have 10 objects in this network. Well, that's just been reduced to 7. The hub, the guestbook application was removed from my hub. And you can see, if I look at the summary of guestbook, it's only now deployed in my dev and my production network. You can use the same exact tagging mechanism, like you could create a tag for production 2.1, production 2.2, and you can move apps anywhere you want based on tags. Upgrade apps, migrate apps from on-prem to in the cloud, whatever you'd like to do. So we just installed applications. Now, how are they running? We have a set of observability tools that help you monitor how the app is running now and how it behaved last night while you were sleeping. So we have a couple of tools. One is an alert tool. We don't have any alerts right now. The other is a graph tool. As I said, you said when we set up this network that we wanted to install Grafana. And I'm actually go here for a second. And we have, you don't have to browse to it if you don't want, but we actually have a Grafana server up and running in our cluster, and we're connecting to it right now. And I'm going to come here and copy my password and go to Grafana and log in. And you have the Grafana dashboard you probably already know and love as a separate tab. However, you may not want a separate tab, and I'm going to show you why in a second. If you come down to our Graphs tab, you see the same exact Grafana experience here, except we have customized 28 different dashboards that you can install. You can look at what Argo CD has been doing, what your compute and network resources have been in all of these clusters. How's your DNS behaving? How's Grafana behaving? You can come look at an alert manager, how many Kubernetes APIs have been issued. So you have lots of different dashboards. I have 5 selected. So if I come back to my console, let's say I want to look at the Kubernetes compute resources in my cluster. You can see here I'm in the dev cluster and my CPU utilization is 17.4, pretty good. That my memory utilization is 35.7. If I had a little bit more history to this data, like down here, you would actually see a graph. I can come, this is the last hour of activity. Of course, everything's happened in the last 10 minutes. but you can select timeframes. Now we're down to a 15-minute block or a 1-minute block, a month ago, whatever you'd like to do. We're going to save this information forever. And the great thing is that we have access to all of our clusters here. So if I want to see how things are running in my hub network, I simply go over and I look at the hub, and my CPU utilization is a little higher, 21.4%, memory utilization, and so on and so forth. If I want to see how my applications ran last night, I can see, for example, application status. This is what I did over the last 10 minutes. That's 11:40. Right now in my time, it's 11:52, which means I need to end this demo soon. And you can see we turned up 1 application, 2 applications, 3 applications, 12 applications. So this is all of the status as to how everything's been going on. And again, you have a history. So if you want to see what happened last night at 2:15 when the stuff hit the fan and your app went down, you can monitor it all here. You have observability. So that's all of your dashboards for all of your Grafanas, for all of your clusters, all on a single page. You don't have to leave this experience to find out what's going on with any app, potentially hundreds of apps across hundreds of clusters. You can stay right here and figure it all out. I want to talk about one other tool before we leave the demo, and that's our AI Ops tool, artificial intelligence applied to operations. What we're doing here is operations. When you go in and you look at when apps were deployed, that's an operational task. When you go into kubectl and you look at your YAML files, that's an operational task. What applying to AI Ops is going to revolutionize the way that we monitor apps. And we have included a tool called Kubernetes GPT that we said we wanted to install when we created this network. And what it does is it takes all of the YAML files for all of the clusters and sends it to a GPT model every minute. And every minute that GPT model runs, it's AI expert, and it says, are there any configuration problems? Out of those 1,000 YAML files, is there a single typo on a single line? Is there a single indent that's missing? Is there a single service that can't be connected to? It analyzes the configuration of all of your YAML, which is very difficult for humans to do, even once, much less every minute forever. This runs 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and it gives you information like this. We found one issue in this network. You got no issues in your dev cluster. You got no issues in your hub cluster, but you have in your prod cluster, but you do have one issue in your hub cluster. Let's see what it is. You have a stateful set called this in the NetHopper namespace, Argo CD stateful set, and it is configured to use a service named this, which is not available. So it's a stateful set is calling for a service which is not available. If you poured over this cluster for 10 hours, you'd be lucky to find that if you're a DevOps expert. But the AI tool is going to find it in less than a minute. And it says, in plain English, the error is that you have a service, you have a stateful set that calls for a service that doesn't exist. And we go so much further to say, we're not just going to tell you what's wrong in plain English. Like, you don't need to be a Kubernetes expert to figure that out, to read that sentence. But we're also going to give you the 3 steps in plain English how to solve the problem. Check if the service has been created. If it doesn't exist, create it. Update the stateful set to use that service with the correct service name. So we've told you what the problem is. Well, first of all, we found the problem with almost no detection time. Secondly, we told you what the problem was in plain English and gave you the 3 steps to solve it in plain English. This is where an ops person can get alerted when AI ops finds a problem and can go in and fix this before your customers even notice it. That's the power of using AI in your operations. And of course, you're seeing it happen right here. It was installed in the last 12 minutes, 16 minutes. So I'm up against the end. That's the demo. Again, this is meant to reduce Kubernetes pain. If you use a platform like this, it can jumpstart your platform engineering. If you see a tool that we use, if you see one of your tools not here, you can install it using GitOps. You can just make a repo with it and install it. So it's all your tools in one place, ready to deploy applications very quickly with minimal pain, and everything is auditable and versionable in Git. So you change something in Git, you change the way this platform behaves. That is hopefully a way to, instead of having 21 dashboards and a lot of tool sprawl, you're going to have one dashboard with really easy to install, really easy to monitor your applications in one platform. With that, I'll see if we have any questions that have come in during the conversation. DDA?
Thank you, Chris. Oh, I see the sun is catching me. Thank you. That was a very impressive demo. Surprising. People are impressed. At least one person, an anonymous, put a question here about being impressed. We have a question about in the chat, actually. When using the install button, is it possible to pass the command line to the cluster console instead of cut and paste?
Yes, absolutely. And everybody who uses our products for the first time, GitOps, does that. They don't trust us. They want to look at all of that YAML that's about to be installed before they execute, before they do a kubectl apply. And of course, you can do that. You can download that YAML, look at it, and then apply it.
Thank you. There's a question from Mark. Is the GPT-based AIOps tool open source?
It is. All of the tools that we use are open source. Everything, and you get support for them. So if you call us up and say, I'm using Argo CD and I don't know how this sync function works, it's not working for me, you have someone to call, email, Slack, and that's us. So all of our tools are open source, including Kubernetes GPT.
All right. Any other question, everybody? That's a good time for your question now. I will bring up end of poll session while people are thinking about the next questions. Give us feedback. That's always useful. And I think for now, we don't have any other questions. I think Dan and Russell gave pointers to whoever would like to get more information and contacts. So we're good. Oh, there's another question here from Wally. What sort of application can be deployed?
So you can deploy any type of application. So if your developers like Java, Spring Boot, JavaScript, Node.js, Ruby, it doesn't matter. Once those are built into containers, and again, we can help you do that with a CI/CD pipeline, you can deploy those applications to Kubernetes. Yes, any Kubernetes manifest, any deployment, any stateful set, any Kubernetes resource can be deployed, even CRDs that nobody but you knows about, you can deploy to Kubernetes.
All right, everyone, more questions for Chris?
Are they able to see the poll, DDA?
Nope, but I'd like to keep it open until we get as many responses as we can for now.
All right.
No more questions from anyone? All right.
Well, thank you very much, DDA, for
your time Chris. That was a very impressive demo and very good session. Thanks for your time. Thank you, Russell and Dan. I know there wasn't many questions. Sorry about that. But thanks for the session. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We'll see you at next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care, DDA.